take the top off of the box and then deal with that outcome.
The only way that this works is if you find your equal and you are a mind reader and they're a mind reader, then you never need to talk.
When you pick a partner, pick somebody that you're going to be proud to be with at 40 and 80 and 100.
So you can never miss out by choosing one person, but you can miss out by not choosing consciously.
But I also love thinking that that's her cat in a different timeline.
Welcome to High Vibe Finds, the podcast. This is where I share my conscious take on pop culture and the human experience, plus a few intriguing stories that just might redefine your reality. My guest today is actress Annabel Storm. Welcome, Annabel.
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. So, like me, you're from the East Coast, right?
I am from Virginia.
So what were some of the big challenges of moving to a city like Los Angeles?
Just how much there is. There is so much to see, so much to do, so much to eat. And it was just a little overwhelming at first, coming to a new place. But I love it. It's the best.
As an actress, do you prefer more dramatic or comedic roles?
I like a little bit of both, but I am a big fan of drama. I love it. I like digging into character development and finding a new piece of myself in whatever character I'm playing.
I have 3 cosmic questions I ask all my guests at the top of the show. You ready for them?
I think so.
Number 1, what is the most inspiring quote you've ever heard?
I have one of my favorites. In a world where you can be anything, be kind. I think it's so simple, but so true. And it's a great foundation to come back to. And it applies to everybody. You don't have to be a smarty pants to think about it. It really just kind of sinks in.
I love that. That's great. We definitely need more kindness in the world today.
I think so.
So, number 2, if you're super stressed, which action would you take? A, hit the gym. B, cuddle up with your cat. C, meditate. Or D, medicate.
I'm a mix between hitting the gym and meditating. I'm a runner, and so I find my meditation in running. When I have moments where life is really overwhelming, I will run, no headphones, and let myself disappear into my own brain. And the physicality behind running really lets me work through things, both mentally and think them through, but take an action while I'm doing it. So I think I'm a little cross between the two.
Number 3, which of the following phenomena is most likely real? UFOs, time travel, psychic abilities, or Bigfoot?
This is a really hard one. I wish I had known this question was coming. UFOs are real, so this is why I'm feeling this is hard. I believe they're real. I'm a big believer in people's ability to sense, which some people might call psychic, but I believe that when you're really in touch with the world around you, you have a predictability to life. Sorry, Bigfoot, I think that's the one that's maybe lowest on my list.
That's great. I used to throw in the word, instead of psychic abilities, I used to say telekinesis, sort of like from Stranger Things. But that is part of psychic abilities. And I think that more of the intuitive abilities I can definitely get behind, because that's how I feel I am. But telekinesis is a little too far out there, where I have not personally seen that. That would be cool if it was true, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but definitely UFOs and definitely time travel. I feel like those two are, I don't even know if I'd put them as likely to be true. I just feel like they kind of are. I don't know.
Most of the stories I'm going to share today are from Reddit. They include relationship advice, am I overreacting, plus a few bizarre ones. And the last story is our hot topic of the day. It has something to do with the 3 kinds of love. Ready to dive in?
I am. I'm so excited.
Let's do it.
We're gonna go boom. We're gonna go boom.
I don't respect my husband when he's sick. I, 33 female, and my husband, 33 male, are both sick with the flu. We've been together 13 years, so I'm used to taking care of him when he's sick. But he is always kind of a baby about it. There's a lot of moaning and noises, and I think I'm dying. Even though I have the exact same flu, I still manage to do partial work days, prep meals, pick up groceries, take the dogs out, and watch the kids, who are also sick. I can deal with all of that. but I've been sleeping upright on the couch for the last few nights because I cough like crazy when I'm lying down. And just now he was like, "Are you sleeping in bed?" I said I would need to be upright at a level that isn't comfortable for him. We have an adjustable bed. And instead of him offering to sleep on the couch so I could have my turn being in bed, he was like, "Okay," and went upstairs. Not even an offer to swap. I've lost a lot of respect for him these last few days. He's convinced his symptoms are so much worse and seems fixated only on himself. And if I confronted him, he would be like, "Well, I let you sleep in this morning till 9, and I made you a cup of tea, and I put the soup in the microwave yesterday." Like it's just enough that he can technically say he's done things to help out. How do I get over this resentment? I know I should have that conversation with him when I'm better and my throat doesn't feel like sandpaper, but I'm pretty damn angry right now. Especially because I can hear the bed's massage settings on upstairs. It's just adding insult to injury.
I think I'd be mad too. I do. I think my feelings would be hurt. I feel like if those are the feelings that she's having, she needs to be honest. At least for me, if I hold on to things, I feel like I think about them more than they really need to be thought about. And then it makes it worse instead of just having the conversation when I'm feeling the thing. Because maybe if she had asked, "I really need a turn in the bed tonight. The couch stinks." Then he would have gone, "Oh my God, of course." But I do think women tend to handle sickness better than men. In general, our lives are full of opportunities where we don't feel well. And so for us, we can navigate the world a little better in not feeling great space. But I do think you have to say the thing that you need from the other person, even when it's hard. And hopefully you're with somebody whose response is, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was happening. How can I, do the thing that you need?" Instead of, "You're being a baby about this." And then if that's the response, you have a different thing to navigate then after that, maybe a choice to make about something.
Here's my hot take. When you overfunction while you're sick, you train other people to underappreciate you and maybe even to take advantage of you. So at first I'd say if OP continues to do all of the hard chores around the house, and by the way, when I say OP, I mean original poster. If she continues to do that and baby her husband from time to time when they're both sick, he's going to then think it's okay to just let her do it. So she needs to share her feelings with him about the whole situation. In my relationship, I just do most of the driving. I do like to drive. She does all of the cooking. I do, I would say most of the cleaning. It just sort of depends on what's going on. But if I were to one day go to her and go, "Why didn't you offer to drive today?" She'd be like, "What? What do you mean? You drive." Same thing if she said to me, why didn't you offer to cook dinner?" I'm like, wait a minute. So it is about that. And I think when people do get sick, that is when, if there is a dynamic that's set up early, unfortunately that there's a lot of assumptions made about, how it's going to be handled moving forward, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think when you don't feel well and you're not sleeping well, you also are not navigating decisions the way that you would if you weren't sick or you were sleeping well. Like whatever, if you were in your regular headspace, I'm sure that would feel different. I think the other thing for her to remember is that you've also spent the last week battling the flu. Just be mindful of that when you approach the situation, that maybe you're not going to say things the best way. Maybe a journal would be a good option. Write everything down. I'm a big fan of a letter, even if it's to yourself, to be like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Because I don't always say things the way I mean to the first time I say them. Sometimes I fumble through what I'm trying to say. So writing it down can be helpful. Yeah, it's hard because she clearly likes her husband. She wants to take care of him. But that training that you were talking about, it can be hard to then be like, wait, I actually need something different here. But hopefully you're with someone that response is, oh my gosh, let's figure it out together and reassess what we're doing.
This brings up a deeper question, which you kind of already touched on, which is, do men complain more when they're sick? And if so, why is that? I looked this up because I was really kind of curious. Here are two totally shocking things. At least one of them is. So medically speaking, sickness can hit men harder due to biological factors like testosterone potentially dampening immune responses, leading to more severe viral symptoms, higher hospitalization and death rates, and weaker vaccine reactions compared to women who often have a stronger baseline immune defense. While some perceive it as exaggeration, which is often referred to as the man flu, research suggests hormonal, genetic, and immune system differences mean men actually do experience worse outcomes with illnesses. First of all, I would say, well, don't tell that to OP. Otherwise, her husband will never do anything around the house.
Yeah. I also think, to be totally honest, it might not be about how much he's complaining or what, like, if they have kids that they're managing and what she needs is for him to help, tough. Like, if that's what she needs to be able to say it, and then he needs to be able to help. Being sick stinks, but when you're a parent, you have other priorities. And so maybe that needs to be a little checked and aligned, and have it be less about like, my husband's being a baby, and more like, the reason I'm feeling so overwhelmed with this is because I'm not getting the support I need. Not really because he's complaining. It's really because I need help. And so maybe figuring out what the actual root cause of the feeling is, instead of it being like, he's always so annoying when he's sick. Because partners are annoying a lot of times, and we love them anyway. So maybe it's something a little deeper, like, I actually really need you right now, and you're not giving me what I need. And so I'm feeling like you're the most annoying person in the world, and you're complaining about everything. But really, I just need you to like help with dinner and put them to bed.
Listen, that's a very high vibe mindset. I love it. Because when you're seeking a life partner, you got to be sure to find your equal or someone as close to it. Someone who can express their feelings openly and honestly and be willing to pitch in, because ultimately it is a partnership. It's like, when I say high vibe, by the way, I really just mean the concept of being aware and conscious and trying to be the best version of ourselves. It's the language of expansion and joy versus low vibe, which is all about like knee-jerk reactions that are fear-based.
Right.
So I was going to read you something else I think is really funny, because there is a psychological explanation, which is that men often complain more when they're sick due to a combination of psychological conditioning and socialized gender roles. Psychologically, many men are taught to suppress emotional discomfort, making physical illness one of the few acceptable outlets for expressing vulnerability and needing care.
So maybe he just wants you to like make him soup, and he can cry because it feels like he can point to something to be like, well, I have the flu. That's why I'm being a baby. When really he just like maybe wanted her to hug him all along.
It's interesting because we do in society, put men in general in a situation where they have to be tough all the time. And so maybe, and especially be the backbone emotionally in many cases. Yeah. But when they're physically sick, it might be their moment to be like, look, I can't fight this because, it's by myself. I need to just go into my man cave and just, you take care of everything. It's not fair, but it's understandable in a way. Yeah. So here's a couple of comments that I like saw were made. One of them just says, stop powering through, stop doing more. When you're sick, do less. You can't change how he feels. You can only control how you feel and what you do.
Sure. That's fair.
And then one says, once you're both healthy, it's worth addressing your resentment. You might need more boundaries for yourself so you aren't trying to pour from an empty cup and being upset with him for replenishing his. And it's exactly what you said. It's really just communication is key in as much of this as possible, right?
Yeah. And if what she feels like is she does need to fill her cup, that's such a good explanation of that, because you have that visual. And if that's what she needs, you have to ask for it, or at least communicate it in a way that's clear, instead of, I want you to read my mind, and if you don't, I'm going to test you on this thing that you don't know I'm asking you, which is a hard thing for the other person. I mean, that's crazy. I know we talked about, psychic abilities, but mind readers are not, at least they're not common. So we have to express verbally what we need from people. And then if that need isn't met, and you've set a clear boundary and you've set a clear explanation of what you need, then there's a different conversation that happens after that.
The only way that this works is if you find your equal and you are a mind reader and they're a mind reader, then you never need to talk. It's just, You read my mind. Yeah. Then we're on to something else, but hey. My friend hasn't said a word to me about my cat passing away, even though I frequently play therapist for him. Am I overreacting? I'm 33 female. My cat died recently from sudden extreme health issues. He was my companion and soul kitty in every sense, and it was impossible to know me without knowing of him. A close friend of mine often vents to me about his problems. He spent weeks messaging me almost daily about being upset that a friend didn't seem to like him as much as he used to. I used to help him by being a sounding board and giving my sage advice. But since my cat died, he hasn't said a single word to me about it. Not one reaction to a message on a shared Discord server. I only knew he was there because I looked at who reacted and happened to see him. He couldn't say a word to me or reach out to me once to see if I'm okay, even though I am not hiding the fact that I am absolutely at rock bottom and just barely hanging on. Am I overreacting?
I feel so sad for them. I mean, first of all, that stinks. It's like the worst to lose an animal, especially an animal that you felt, really connected to. More than that, though, is losing a friend that you thought was like a really good friend, and then to maybe have to realize, ooh, I wonder if this happens all of the time and this is just a spotlight example of something that maybe has been going on. Yeah. That's a really hard thing to come to. And I think sometimes harder in friendships than like partnership relationships. I think friendships can be really hard because friends are supposed to be like, your everything. I think this is pretty similar, in ways to the last story, in that maybe you need to do a little soul searching of like, is this how things are all of the time? Or is this like a unique example? Are you playing therapist all of the time and helping them all of the time and you get nothing back from a friendship? And if that's the way it is, you have to have a conversation.
When someone doesn't reach out, when you're obviously grieving, we as humans tend to internalize it. We start asking questions like, do I even matter to them? Am I asking too much of them? Mm-hmm. But when someone stays silent, it's usually about emotional immaturity. And I'll say because most people, most of whom happen to be men, get uncomfortable with loss, especially when it's the loss of a pet. And it's possible he doesn't know what to say, or he doesn't want to get into a discussion about how much her cat meant to her because he just doesn't get it.
That's a really interesting take. I wonder, we're speaking now to the friend. It doesn't matter what you say, just say something. It doesn't have to be the right thing. She doesn't need you to say the right thing. Like, it doesn't have to be the, Chat GPT answer that it spits out for you. Just say something. Acknowledge that you know her cat died and that she's sad about it, and then say, whatever you need me to do, tell me and I can do it for you. It doesn't have to be the perfect poem.
I mean, I've been there. I can't really pinpoint the specific moment, but there's been a time where something happened, not a pet, but somebody went through something, and I'm just like, do I reach out to them? I don't know them that well, but I know them well enough. And if I just don't say anything, isn't that wrong? What do I say? It's really sometimes just simple as, hey, I heard that this happened. I'm so sorry to hear that.
I'm so sorry. You don't have to say anything else other than that. It doesn't really matter the outcome of that either. Like, grief is weird and uncomfortable, and death is a weird part of the human existence. It's the main thing of the human existence, what we're all gonna do, right? Like, our lives can be wildly different and everybody ends up the same way. And so I think it is less about, you can say, I'm super uncomfortable because I don't know what to say to you, but I just know I'm sorry for you.
I like that. That's actually really good. Just a very straight honesty about it.
Honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And death is uncomfortable. It's hard. It's a hard thing to navigate. And whether it's a family member or a pet or whatever, if someone was connected to a being, it matters to acknowledge that. Doesn't really matter if, maybe he's like, I don't get a cat. Like, I don't get how you can be that, whatever. It's not about that. For her, that was her person or her being that, was her company keeper. And so it's not about any of that other stuff of maybe understanding how it matters to her, just that it did.
That's a great read on it, because actually I did notice some of the comments, and she had to respond to the comments where people were like, why are you getting all upset about a cat? It's just a cat. And people were like, she had to respond, eventually just put an edit saying something like, hey, if you don't get it, you don't get it. But this is an important companion to me. And I spent however many years, 15 years with this cat. So yeah, I mean, that does mean a lot. And not everyone understands that, unfortunately.
No, and not everybody has family in their life to fill that companion role, or a significant other, or a big group of friends. And so if you rely on what seems like a silly being to keep your life in motion, it matters. I mean, you never know what her existence is like in her apartment or house or wherever she is. Could be totally alone, and that could have been the little guy that, she had with her every night to not feel so alone.
I mean, I do think that OP should consider reaching out to her friend, especially
Yes.
since she hasn't heard from him yet, and just let him know how she feels. Because once again, similar to the first story, her resentment will only grow. If he's not told directly about it, he'll probably pretend he never saw the post,
Right. Yeah, I agree. And also she should do just a little bit of internal discovery about this friendship and say, does it matter to me if this person reaches out to me? If it does, I need to ask for it. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to move on from the friendship, or let it be okay and let that person be we have different levels of friends. That person can be a friend and not a best friend, but your best friend reaches out. And if they didn't, you ask for it because it matters. And you tell them, hey, you hurt my feelings because of blah, blah, blah. Making up those scenarios in your head instead of allowing the person to respond to that is no good. We come up with the worst outcome of everything. And who knows, maybe he'll cry and beg for forgiveness. At least you know. And now you're not guessing anymore about how he's feeling or what he thought.
If OP is always the emotional anchor in this friendship, then they're probably, like the first story, maybe an unspoken dynamic where her support is assumed while he just coasts along feeling that he doesn't have to offer the same consideration to her. That imbalance will never get fixed unless she brings it to his attention. And if after she does that, he's like, I didn't really think it mattered that much, then obviously that's reassess what's going on here.
Yeah. And also that we are all just people living for the first time. And so allowing people to have an opportunity to grow is really important if you care about them. If you don't care about them, then it doesn't matter. But it sounds like she cares about him. So giving him an opportunity to learn about the way that she deals with things and what she needs from him is important. And, you have to see the best in people, or I think you do have to see the best in people and hope that they're willing to do that growing with you if the relationship matters.
Yeah, but my heart does go out to her because, I've had pets. There are some people who've had even stronger bonds than I have had. But, I know what that's like when you have this friendly familiarity and closeness. Cats, for example, they love to just, cuddle with you, but also they could be a little bit like, I'm in my space now. But it's a fun dynamic,
It is. It's
and
the
then
best.
dogs you cannot see anything wrong with a dog. The dog is just 100% there for you. Always happy to see you. Yeah. So it's hard when you're used to that. But by the way, when I was in high school, I was one of those types that was a pretty bright light in my friend group. But at one point, I battled depression. And so naturally, I wasn't as upbeat or exuberant. It's like almost like a half a year when I was 17. And one of my closest friends kept avoiding me. And I couldn't figure out why. But once I got through to the other side, he then told me that he was freaked out. He just didn't know what to say to me or how to handle it because he's so used to me being this upbeat guy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to hold it over him. I said, hey, I get it. I understand it. It's just, when we get used to people, this is a quick sports reference. There's a player on the Rams. His name is Puka Nacua. He's a wide receiver, and he is just a ball of energy, so upbeat. And when he gets out there, his energy just supercharges the offense. But in one of the games, he dropped a ball that was rare for him to drop, and he could have easily waltzed in for a touchdown. And he felt so upset. He was so down on himself, and you could just see that the rest of the offense locked in with that energy, and just immediately the vibration was real low. And so they had to they realized, hey, we got to get this guy back, because some people really do charge other people, and people tune into people's vibration. I can understand why he felt like it was hard for him to know what to do.
I also love that you allowed him to move on from that and grow from that too. Because being 17 is hard. Being a 17-year-old boy is really hard. Navigating the transition from teenager to adulthood and figuring out like your friends and how relationships work. I mean, you're really still just a kid. And so for you to be able to say, I'm going to let you move on. Like I'm not going to hold any grudge against you. I was navigating something that was really hard for me. I think that's pretty awesome too, and pretty mature of your 17-year-old self to be able to see through that and not take it personally. Because just like a lot like death, a shift in someone's, center or the way that they navigate the world, it's really hard and uncomfortable. And it can be really uncomfortable to say to somebody like, I don't know how to talk to you anymore. And that feels like you're going to hurt their feelings. So it's easier to be like, I'm just going to ignore them. But I think it's really cool that both of you could be like, hey man, I'm sorry. It's okay. Let's still be friends. I think that's really important to recognize, and we should keep that more into our lives than I think we do. We get out of that like young teenager space, and we're not quite as good at doing that as grown-ups. And it's a good thing to remember. It's good to forgive people when you can and move on when you can.
Oh yeah, I really think if someone holds a grudge, especially when you're young over something, if you have any clarity to look at it from a slightly higher perspective and see, well, what were they going through? Why
Right.
did they have a hard time with it? And you just think of it for a second. Like, oh yeah, well, he did say I didn't know what to say or how to handle it because of these reasons. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I can't be angry with him. What am I expecting someone to be like fully evolved at any age? There's
Any
always
age.
blind spots we have.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah.
just our job when someone calls attention to a blind spot. How do we react? How do we handle it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. It's hard, I think, as we get older to admit that, like, we don't know everything. Oh my God,
Isn't
I'm a
that
grown up.
true?
I'm supposed to know everything. Oh, I'm going to pretend I'm going to be defensive about this thing instead of being like, oh crap, I don't know. I'm sorry. Go back to your, inner child and be able to be like, oh, I don't know. Ask the questions, be inquisitive, be able to not know everything, and then apologize when you need to.
I think we put too much emphasis as people on objects. Like I always say, I have guitars that I've played for years and I love them. And, I love them meaning that like I'm used to them and, they serve a purpose. And if it suddenly broke, I would feel a loss, but I would not be grieving for years or months or even, I'd be like, man, that sucks, but I have had it for 15, 20 years. A cat, a living, breathing entity, is a whole different thing. I'm in a loving long-term relationship, but I'm scared I'll regret never being with anyone else. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I've been with my boyfriend, who is 24 male, since I was 16. He is my first everything. First date, first kiss, first love, first relationship. We've been together for 6 years, and our relationship is genuinely loving, healthy, and supportive. He is kind, respectful, emotionally safe, and ambitious. For the last few years, though, I have been feeling something that I kept pushing away because I hoped it would disappear. Curiosity about what it would be like to experience dating and relationships outside of this one. Not because I don't love my boyfriend, but because I've never been single, never dated, and never experienced anyone else. When guys show interest in me, I always say no and stay loyal, but inside, I sometimes feel disappointed that I can't explore that side of life. Recently, a guy I know asked me out, and even though I immediately said no because I have a boyfriend, I felt genuinely sad that I couldn't go on a date with him. That reaction scared me. I was honest with my boyfriend about these feelings because I felt guilty keeping them inside. I told him that meeting this guy made me realize how curious I feel about what it would be like to experience dating and even being on my own. He responded with a lot of love and maturity. He said he wants to build a life with me, but that he also doesn't want me to stay if I'm unsure, or if I would be happier discovering myself first. He encouraged me to make a choice based on what I truly want, not on what I think he wants to hear. He also told me something that makes this even harder. If I do decide that I need to go explore life on my own, he will respect that, but he won't stay in limbo or wait around, which I completely understand. He knows he wants a life partner he can build a future with, and if I choose a different path, he would move forward with life too. Now I feel completely torn. I'm afraid that if I commit fully, I might regret never experiencing being single or dating other people, but I'm also terrified of losing someone incredibly rare and regretting that forever. The fact that he has handled this with so much empathy makes it even harder because it shows how good of a partner he is. He truly deserves someone who is fully certain and I hate that I'm struggling with this. Part of me thinks walking away just to explore would be the dumbest decision of my life. But another part of me keeps wondering if I'll regret not giving myself a chance to discover another side of myself.
Wow. Deep feelings
FOMO.
for somebody, seriously. That's a lot for somebody who's, what, 22?
22, been with him since she was 16, and that's like a long time. That's a
It's your
big
whole
period.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Most relationships
your
when you're
whole-
an adult don't last that long.
Touche. I have a couple of big feelings I think that come up. The first one being, how cool is your partner? I mean, how awesome is that? That's number one.
Yeah.
Super cool. However, makes your decision way harder. If he had screamed at you, how easy would it be to leave, right? So it's like a double-edged sword. I mean, in my opinion, the best version of it, you should not be with somebody who is unkind or, treats you poorly. I do think if she's having these feelings and they feel real, something probably needs to be reassessed in life. It doesn't have to mean that the other person is a bad person. It can just mean that it's not the right time or whatever the feeling is. But it would be a disservice to him if that's not really where she wants to be and she's only there because she thinks, when I'm 40, I'll wish I had stayed. I think that you meet lots of people in your life who are great partners at lots of different times for lots of different reasons. You have friends who come into your life and teach you things or propel you in different directions. And so I think if she's feeling squirmy, there's probably something she should really sit with. And again, I go back to journaling because I love to write things out and see if it's maybe like somewhere else in her life or if it's really in her relationship. She clearly cares about this person. So making sure that that's really how you're feeling before you make a big life decision.
So I have a couple thoughts on this one. First of all, I'll just say, in general, curiosity is not a sign that you're with the wrong person. Wondering what else is out there is not a betrayal of love per se. It's a natural human response. When relationships move towards marriage, our minds, will naturally scan alternatives, not because something is wrong, but because we do know deep down the power of that commitment. So you may just, whether it's conscious or unconscious, you may look around like, is this the right thing? What does this person have to offer? I mean, I'm not saying I did that, I'm not saying you're doing that, but it would be understandable. Now, having said that, it does seem like OP's curiosity is an 8 or 9 out of 10 here. She got sad when she had to turn down another man, which means she really just might have an itch that's got to be scratched. I do get a sense that her curiosity has climbed over the hill in this case.
Yeah.
Because, there's a lot. I've been in situations where I've kind of wanted to ask friends something. Like I go, hey guys, what do you think? I'm kind of having this issue, whether it's at work or with a relationship, and I'm thinking this, but this. And if I find myself, if they start giving me feedback or they start going, well, what about this? What about this? If I find myself playing devil's advocate constantly, like, yeah, but wouldn't it be cool to be with other women? But, this girl was really attractive. I mean, I just want to see what it feels like. Then it's like, you're answering your own question here.
Uh-huh.
You really want to do this. And the problem is like, whether or not it's going to work out or not, who knows?
But it could not work out with him. Like, she's making this assumption that they're going to have a whole life together. I think trying to plan too far out is a disservice to yourself. You should definitely surround yourself with people who are good people. And, if you want to plan a future with somebody, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but doing all of this so that 40-year-old you or 60-year-old you doesn't regret something that is so hard. And you're 22. You're only 22. A lot of life happens. I would say when you pick a partner, pick somebody that you're going to be proud to be with at 40 and 80 and 100 and whatever. But if your response to somebody asking you out is, oh, I said no because I have a boyfriend, instead of, oh, I'm with someone, I'm very happy, I don't need anything else.
Right.
If it's only the label piece to it and the like, oh, this would make me look bad, or you shouldn't want to hurt somebody else's feelings, all of those things. But really the reason that you don't look for other partners when you're in a long-term relationship is because you're with the person that you want to be with.
That should be the reason, right?
That should be it. That should be it. Is that like, I'm not interested in anything else. This is where I want to be. And if she's not feeling that way, And especially at 22, you've got a long way to go for the rest of your life.
I totally agree. I mean, her curiosity, by the way, doesn't have to mean that she is unsatisfied with her boyfriend. It doesn't have to mean that. It
No.
could mean other
Totally.
things. The question isn't, is she missing out? It's, what does she believe these experiences with other men would give her? And that brings up another point, which is having an experience doesn't necessarily create fulfillment. It's all about like integrating that experience. So, for example, dating other men wouldn't automatically lead her to wisdom or confidence or anything. But I think what would actually bring her peace is truly understanding herself. We all need to be mindful. We shouldn't romanticize the unknown as much as we tend to do. It's always the grass is greener on the other side, but this person has this going on. We tend to romanticize that. And I think that if she could get specific about what she thinks that this experience could offer her, then she would better know what her real goal is here. Is it validation,
Yes.
sexual exploration, independence?
Yes.
If she knew exactly what it was. But I will say that I happen to have known a girl who was in a long-term committed relationship. They seemed like on paper, everything between them was great. They balanced each other out. But then one day, I'm hanging out with her alone, having coffee. And she says to me, I am just so like miserable. And I'm like shocked because I'm like, what do you mean you guys show up? You're great. She's like, he's a great guy. He's like such a good guy, but we have no real chemistry physically. I'm over it. I don't find him attractive. Not that he's a bad looking guy. She just said he just doesn't have any passion that makes her excited. And so she's like, I just want someone, I want to feel a spark with someone. And when I heard her say that, I was like, whoa, my whole perception of how you guys come across has just gone, 180. And now I'm thinking, even if it's going to blow up your life here, you have to move on.
Yes.
There's no way you should stay in that kind of a situation.
I think it's also important, like, as you're seeking things out, that like relationships grow and change. So you should really make sure that you're with someone that you can do all of that with. And I think if OP were to sit with herself and figure out what the real issue is, right? Like, is it her relationship? Is it something like deep down that she really needs? I will tell you, I went to my long-term partner, now my fiance, my boyfriend at the time, and said, I'm going to move across the country. And he said, that was an opportunity where I think a relationship can go one of two ways. And he said, I want you to do it. And we stayed together, but that was something that I needed to do for myself. And you could probably get that itchy feet syndrome from something that maybe you're not even realizing what the real thing is that you want. Is it somebody else? Or is it just a change in your life? Like, are you just unhappy where you are? And it might still mean that your relationship isn't what you want or what you need at this point in your life, but finding the root to that and then making sure all the people around you are aligned with that. Because I think it's pretty telling in relationships. Unfortunately, it sounds like she's with someone who's really supportive, which does make it harder, like in a lot of ways. But just making sure she knows the root cause of that need to pivot and change and whatever. Because if it's, exploring something different with her partner, maybe it's just that. Or maybe it's something bigger. But maybe it's something else that you haven't even thought of yet. And this sounds like such a person who's willing to explore things with you and the universe and, life and whatever, didn't shut things away or didn't want you to tell him things or whatever. So you just might have really open conversations before you decide to close the door on something if you're not sure.
When we commit to someone, it's not about losing options. It's about choosing depth. For me, marriage isn't the absence of freedom. It's freedom redirected towards a shared experience and trust. So you can never miss out by choosing one person, but you can miss out by not choosing consciously.
Yes.
I'll read this one short comment. Dating isn't fun for most people these days. Would you dig in a muddy, filthy mine for gold, find a big chunk on your first try, then throw it away saying, but I want to experience more digging?
Well,
you might if it's not the exact kind of gold you want.
You might. And 16 is very young to make a choice for yourself for the rest of your life. I mean, I really just agree with you. She's got to know herself a little better in all the facets of the world, and then make sure she's with someone that's aligned in all of her needs and experiences and wants and, drive for the rest of her life.
Totally agree with that. Well said. I am worried that my boyfriend is taking a new antidepressant at random times of the day, which seems to be affecting him in negative ways. Am I overreacting? My boyfriend started a new antidepressant I've never heard of. I've always been wary about mood stabilizers, as I was on and off of them for 3 years. I chose to be unmedicated, even with my diagnosis, and understand that he chooses to be medicated. Every person reacts differently to these drugs, but after doing my own research and listening to him tell me that he physically feels off and emotionally feels numb, I think the medication is affecting him in negative ways. His psychiatrist told him to take the pill when he wakes up, but my boyfriend doesn't have a normal sleep schedule. My feelings on this have caused several arguments, but today was different. He slept through the night after taking his pills around 4 p.m. yesterday after he woke up. He took it again around 10 a.m. today after waking up. I'm worried because I know that taking antidepressants is much like taking birth control. There are set times that aren't supposed to be altered, but he won't listen to me when I tell him that. Taking more than one dose before the 24-hour window increases the risk of side effects, and with this particular medication, seizures as well. Am I overreacting?
My gut reaction is no, you're not overreacting. But sort of the flip side to that is that it might also not be something that is yours to control. I mean, you're going to get to choose who's in your space, so I don't mean that, if the side effects of this are anger or something that you just don't want to be around, like you're just not interested in that. That's fair to set and expect. But also he has to be a grown-up and decide how he wants to navigate this. I think being a support system is really important, especially if he's struggling with a lot of depressive feelings. If he's struggling with depression, it's kind to be there for someone. It's not your job, but as a partner, it is a little. But also that he's a grown-up and he has to be able to handle this himself. You cannot be responsible for someone's health journey. You can support them on that, and that includes mental health. You can support them. You can be a kind person. You can be the level. You can be the ground for them, but you cannot force them to want any of that themselves. And maybe he's not there where he really wants it in a way that is going to work.
I'm going to read you a comment first because somebody said, stop playing Nancy Drew MD and worry about yourself. It's concerning that you're actively choosing to be undermedicated, but giving him advice on what he should do for his well-being. It's like someone else has said, maybe overreacting. You need to let his doctor manage his medication. Just make sure that he is telling his doctor the concerns that you're noting. Beyond that, you should not be trying to manage his medication.
The emotional response, in my opinion, is not an overreaction. I get it. I would be concerned too. I mean, that's your person. You're like, hello, what are you doing? So I understand that reaction, but also making sure that they know this is not their responsibility to manage somebody else's health. It is not your responsibility. And sometimes coming to terms with that is really hard because if you're not managing it, especially with something like this, the alternative option could be a really terrible outcome. And so you feel like, if I can manage this, I can save them. You cannot. You are not going to be the savior. That's a really hard thing to come to terms with. And also that you are not responsible for being that person. Sometimes allowing other people to tell you that you are not the responsible party for something like this, especially managing mental health, can be really freeing. And it sounds like maybe they need to find some freedom to let go a little bit. It doesn't mean that they don't care about that person. It doesn't mean that they don't want the best for them. It just means that they don't have to own that. You don't have to be that person because that is too much for a person to bear. Like, that's just too much.
Oh, yeah. So I have a question. So without going into a long debate about big pharma, what are your thoughts on young adults being prescribed medication for depression and other mood-related conditions? Do you think in general that society is over-medicated?
Yes. I am a very limited medicine taker. I think for a lot of people it's necessary because when you get too far in a hole, it is very hard to come out of. And sometimes you need to level set and try again. Come back up to the surface. If you've got bricks tied around your ankles, That's unfair. What are you going to tell somebody to reach down and untie them or give them a pair of scissors? Sometimes it's the pair of scissors, right? You can cut it off and get up to the surface. But I also think recognizing the other pieces to your life that may be feeding into something is really important. It's really hard. It's really hard. And it can feel uncomfortable. We're very defensive. We don't always want to recognize the things that we're doing that we know are harming us in a negative way. So that's my very general opinion on it. And also recognizing that like medicine does not work for everybody in like for the rest of their life. Like the rest of it. It might work for the thing it's trying to solve, but in the rest of their life around them, it's not working for them. Any ad we've ever seen on TV, what's the last 30 seconds, right? This medicine may cause, and then they go into all of the, you're like, good Lord, it's saying it causes the thing it's preventing. You know, you listen to antidepressant ads and one of the, outcomes could be depression. And you're like, I feel like something about this. So all that to say, it doesn't work for everybody. And also that sometimes you got to put a little grit into stuff. It doesn't mean that you don't allow yourself a safety net or a level set if that's what you need. But you've also got to do, what, in my opinion, the building block work that comes with that. So if you're actively, in a depression and you're using antidepressants, I think it's also really important that you're doing a form of therapy that goes with that teaches you skills, coping mechanisms, actionable items that you can put into place in your life, because at some point you probably don't want to be medicated or may not be able to be medicated. And so having coping mechanisms and skills outside of, I'm going to do this thing because it's the option right now, or the easy, sometimes we call it the easy way. And I don't even think that's always true for people. Sometimes it's really hard to acknowledge and even get to that space of being willing to take something like an antidepressant. But, we have a lot of anxiety in the world right now and a lot of anxiety issues. And a lot of that is band-aided with medicine. And sometimes it's just like not scrolling on TikTok for 6 hours a day. But it would be a really hard thing to cut out. And like, are you willing to do it? It's hard. All of those things are hard.
I do think that in general, society does have a tendency to just over-medicate people. Like, oh, you're feeling bad, take this pill. Oh, you have this pain, take this pill. And sure, I'll get to this in a moment, how medicine can help you. But if it's the first thing to think to do for every little thing or any minor thing, that's the bad, tendency that we seem to be having right now. What OP was saying about taking medication at random hours, yes, it can absolutely mess with your sleep and potentially your health.
Yes.
But, the only high vibe move here is for her to share how she feels and leave it at that. It's not really up for her to be the doctor. Now, when I was 17, again, that was that time I mentioned earlier, I went through a pretty bad depression. The short story is that I was at a time in my life where I was dating, different girls at the same time, just getting to know different girls. I was becoming popular. I was very creative as a writer and musician. So all these things caused my ego to swell. And the more I fed it, the more I fell out of alignment with the best version of myself. My mind, my soul, my body, it has a way of always responding in definitive ways to let me know if I'm out of sync. And in this case, I started to become manic and depressed. It was like, I felt like I was watching someone else in one moment scale a mountain and feel like nothing could stop me, and then quickly fall into the abyss and be the most dark-minded person ever. So it was a pretty crazy roller coaster ride, and I was falling pretty fast and hard. And so my parents said, look, we need to put you on this medication. And I did get put on whatever one of those standard antidepressants were.
Yeah.
And it did, like you said, it did stabilize me. It stopped me from free falling. And it brought me up to just a very basic level. I was feeling numb emotionally, and I wasn't myself. I was a little more like a zombie, but I wasn't free falling. And so it really did help me at that point. It was a net. At a certain point, I realized that I didn't want to be on medication for the rest of my life. So I started thinking, what can I do? And I lived in a house that had like 9 acres of forest behind it and a river. So I would just hike back there and sit by the river. And there were some more borderline esoteric moments that happened where I just felt this really deep connection with nature and some higher force. But logistically, it's like meditation, affirmations, spending time in nature. It all helped to elevate my mindset. And eventually I just weaned myself off the drugs. I told my parents, hey, I'm not doing it anymore. And I haven't been for like months. And they were, of course, at first like, oh no, what's going to happen? But then they saw in me that I had found a new sort of calm, and they just let me go, and I haven't needed it since. So I do think there's a way to overcome it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need it just to stop you from free falling, right?
Right. When you've lost yourself so much, sometimes you need it to maybe not feel anything at all, not this weird new person that you've become. You kind of get back to nothing in middle and then have to find yourself again. I mean, you do. And if you just stop at the middle, sometimes that's not enough. You got to re-find yourself.
Yeah.
Getting to a place where you're not harming yourself and others is crucially important. And if you cannot do that in any other way, take medicine. Be somewhere safe. If it's checking yourself in somewhere, if it's taking medication, if it's finding a new way of life, be the person that you want to be. But definitely for OP, you're not responsible for any of this. And letting go of that's really hard. You were so lucky to have parents who, really saw you, and you were at a great age where they could catch you before you went off into the world, and maybe didn't have people around you to really see you. And they caught you a little before then and were able to get you level set and back to health.
Am I overreacting? My girlfriend's obsession with a music artist has gradually intensified, and I'm starting to get upset. My girlfriend, 26, has always loved Bad Bunny, which is totally fine. I've dated girls that have had celebrity crushes and like specific bands. I even used to go see those bands with ex-girlfriends and ended up liking them too. But as I continue dating my current girlfriend, I'm noticing an obsession, not just with Bad Bunny, but with male celebrities. Over the weekend, when we woke up after a short nap and we were sharing an intimate moment, she says, I had a dream that Bad Bunny picked me up and brought me home with him. I immediately felt completely turned off. I thought the comment was made at an inappropriate time and felt like it ruined the moment. She recognized it pretty quickly and overcompensated with affection, but the intimate moment was over. So I asked, would it not be rude if my social media was filled with attractive girls, and if I said something like, I dreamed that I was on a road trip with Sabrina Carpenter and brought her home with me, right as my girlfriend and I began kissing? Maybe I am being insecure, but this incident and her recent obsession of male celebrities has got me fired up. Am I overreacting?
I don't think you're overreacting. I think OP is definitely coming from a real place. Also, maybe she needs to learn some timing of if she's gonna share things with you, when the appropriate time is. I also will say, I think the rise in these sort of parasocial relationships is really interesting. We're very connected to celebrities in a way that I don't think we've ever been before. Like, we see them all the time, and in casual settings, especially someone like Bad Bunny, who's like pretty active in everything, like on social media, he does a lot of stuff, whatever. And so you almost see them like casually, like a friend, but you don't know them. And sometimes I think that relationship line can get blurred a little bit, especially if what she has is a very innocent crush on someone who, sorry girl, you'll probably never meet in your life. You know what I mean? Like someone that she's not gonna know. She's not gonna know Bad Bunny. I mean, maybe, who knows? If I'm wrong and you're married to him, sorry. But you know what I mean? Like an innocent crush like that, and then having it turn into something different. I come back to, he needs to sit down with her and in a very calm manner and clear say, whatever this cute thing was is not so cute anymore, and it's hurting my feelings. It's making me feel inadequate. It's making me feel a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to see Bad Bunny shirtless on your Instagram feed. That doesn't feel good for me. And recognizing that. I will say, big Harry Styles girl. Love him.
Okay.
But people will even tell me that my fiance looks a little like Harry Styles, which is always funny to me. But also recognizing that, like, he probably doesn't want my feed to look like, Harry Styles shirtless. And just being aware that innocent jokes can have an endpoint where they're not so funny anymore and they end up being sort of hurtful. And so she crossed a line, and he's got to be honest with that. I think with her is number one.
I will say that just because OP feels unsettled by this Bad Bunny incident, it doesn't mean automatically that he has low self-esteem. Because a lot of people are like, oh, dude, get over yourself. In the comments, there are people who are reacting that way. Like, look, he might, but it's far more likely that he just wants to understand where she's coming from and why she's even sharing this fantasy in the first place. Celebrity crushes are too common. And I would say it's more common now because it's not just, oh, I saw them on the Tonight Show. It's like they have all these different social medias and they're engaged with things and they might respond to a random person. And so it's definitely understandable that people might feel now more than ever that they have some special connection to somebody.
Yeah.
But you know, when your admiration for a famous musician turns into fixation and recurring dreams, that's when it starts to siphon energy away from your actual relationship. And OP is allowed to want to feel like the primary focus is on him. But before he talks to his girlfriend, he needs to get clear on what specifically is bothering him. Is it the fact that this keeps happening? Or is it that her emotional intensity is growing for Mr. Bunny?
Everybody has a celebrity crush. Somebody that you're like, oh my God, they're so cute. They're so fun. They're so funny, whatever. But I think making sure that she understands that, like, it has become uncomfortable is also really important, and that he shouldn't fixate on whatever her response is going to be to that. But again, just say it. Like, not make up all these things that she might say to him when he tells her this. Just say it. And in a, respectful and calm way, have a real conversation about it, and then let her respond and let that be what it is. She also may not realize that it's like not funny anymore. And it's become a little weird. And she might need someone to check her. Like, the OP is the right person to do that. That's who should check you. Your girlfriends are all going to sit around and giggle about it, like, together. So you need your partner to check you a little on that.
I mean, personally, I would be shocked if my wife told me about a sexual dream she was having about Ryan Gosling right as we're about to get intimate. I'd be like, why are you bringing that up now? It's like,
yeah, the timing she's really got to learn, too. Like, she may need to do like a little bit of social cue exploration for herself. A little learning there.
By the way, her fantasy here isn't the issue. It's the impact that it's having on him. Because there's no dream police, at least not yet. If Elon Musk has his way, maybe robots or AI will monitor all of our thoughts one day. But until then, trying to police someone's inner world it's not going to work. What's fair, though, is for OP to share how his girlfriend's obsession makes him feel, which is, less connected and kind of turned off by it. Why would anyone think that they can bring something up like that and then go back to kissing right after that?
Yeah. And that she took a dream out of dream space and said it out loud. So if it's something that you need to acknowledge and work through with your partner, that's one thing. But if it's something else...
Fantasizing about someone who is, like you said, unattainable, it usually means that part of them is feeling dormant or neglected or suppressed in some way. So this may just be her way of expressing that. Doesn't mean that she's a bad person or anything. But the real question is, what are these fantasies giving her? And can that energy be brought back into their relationship?
Yeah.
Well, people are just like, I don't see insecurity here, just immaturity and perhaps a lack of respect. Everyone has crushes, but your girlfriend is expressing hers like a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah, I think that's the piece that they need to talk about is seriously when it goes from being like a cute, innocent crush to like a little weird, you got to just tell them.
It says like she can't control her dreams, but she can control whether or not she divulges the content of her dreams.
And when?
Right? And when? I've had some wacky dreams about celebrities before, usually right after watching a movie they were in. I keep it to myself, though. It doesn't benefit anyone, especially my partner, for me to talk about it nonstop.
Yeah.
I believe, though, that we are using the law of attraction every day, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. It's not a mystical force. It's kind of just a universal principle that keeps being proven to be right. In other words, with the law of attraction, we draw people into our life who reflect our inner state. So when we feel excited by life or passionate about something, let's say traveling, for example, suddenly a friend or a potential partner who also loves to travel will show up in our life. Maybe you bump into them at Starbucks, at a party, at the airport, but somehow, some way we make that connection and then share that experience with them. So it's like what is within is reflected without. And using that sort of law of attraction principle, he may just have attracted her into his life so that he can confront this issue, whatever it is. And same with her.
Yeah.
Celebrity crushes can be a very dangerous fantasy if you go too far with it. There's been movies where someone has pictures of an actor all, on every wall in their room, and then they practice kissing on a page of a poster of that person. That's just, maybe that's okay if you're, 10 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that the main point is it's our responsibility to try to cultivate a vibrant inner world, because the more we can do that, the more we will experience things in our outer reality.
Yeah. I think, getting to the root of what you want in life and making sure everything that you do, every decision you make reflects what you want. So he might need to do a little bit of soul searching too and figure out, what is it exactly that I want? And is this person somebody worth finding that with? Or do I maybe need to leave and find a different, partner?
I would just ask this to people who are struggling with like relationship questions, especially if it had celebrity elements. Like in your case, I would say, so you're happy in your relationship now. If Harry Styles knocked on the door and said, let's go out for a date, would you say, hell's yes? You'd be like, hey, I'm a big fan, but,
I would call my fiance and be like, Harry Styles is taking us out to dinner. No. Listen, love Harry Styles. He is an incredible musician. He is British. What can't you love about a Brit? But there is no world where I end up with anybody but my partner. I tell people all the time that I think the number one reason why I love him so much is that he makes me the best version of myself. And that's who you really want to be around, is somebody who knows you so deeply to your soul. And sorry, Harry, love you, but will not be going out to dinner with you.
That's a fantastic answer. Fantastic answer. Textbook. I love it. So now let's cross the threshold into the somewhat bizarre. This story is from the Glitch in the Matrix section.
Okay.
And it's called The Magic Cat. I'm 36 female. At the last place I lived, I would often see my cat out of the corner of my eye. When I turned to look at him, he would be gone. I would then get up and look for him and find him fast asleep on the other side of the house. And there would be no way he could have gotten from where I saw him to the other side of the house and fallen asleep in such a short amount of time. I recently moved, and this is no longer happening. Now I'm wondering, what was this all about? Did I see the ghost of my cat in another timeline? Or my cat from an alternate universe? Or is there a logical explanation for this?
Well, I love that we came back to cats. I think this was a great story. And also, again, I think going back to that story, it shows the connection of animals and how important they are. So for some reason, it was important for her to either see that version of her cat or to get up and go do something. I'm a big believer in the burnt toast theory of, you burn your toast, you have to make it again, so now you're 5 minutes late to work. There's a reason, your toast got burnt. It's saving you from something else, or pushing you towards something else. And so it may have been, it may have been a trick in her eyes or whatever, but the reason that she was seeing that was you needed to go look at your cat in the middle of the day. Or you needed to get up from where you were sitting because of whatever thing the universe was pushing you to do. But I also love thinking that that's her cat in a different timeline and like playing tricks on her and being a little bit silly and just that she may have found herself in the exact place that she was supposed to be. The universe put her in that apartment in the right time, in the right place, at the right, experience in her life. And that was exactly where she was supposed to be. And that's why things were overlapping, is just because she was so right in where she was that she was there every single time. Every single timeline she was there. And so...
Oh, that's sweet.
Maybe it was one overlap or maybe it was several, but every single time she and her cat were there together. And I love thinking that when I meet someone who's like exactly who I was supposed to meet, I think, I'm exactly where the universe wanted me to be. I feel that way about my partner. I feel that way about people that I meet who I work with. And I think like, gosh, I listened. I'm in the right place that I'm supposed to be, in the exact right timeline, in the exact right, existence as myself. So maybe that's what it was. Just a guarantee that she's doing the right thing and in the right place.
I love what you said about how it underscores the connection and how powerful it is between us and pets.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments, someone said, "My cat is constantly doing this to me. I'll swear she's sound asleep across the house, then suddenly she's behind me. She's also a hide and seek champion. But just when I think I found all of her hiding spots, she pops up out of absolutely nowhere. Cats can teleport. I'm semi-serious." And someone else wrote, "Your cat is astral projecting in his sleep." It's just, it's just funny. But I think this story highlights a universal truth, which is human perception isn't like watching a video. It's a living process that's shaped by our attention, our memory, the environment, and our own nervous systems. Mm-hmm. Perception is much more fluid than we were taught. And that's just because reality can seem strange doesn't mean that it's a hallucination.
Right.
But also, cats are creatures of habit. And when we live with them, our awareness becomes tuned to their movements. Because we have strong emotional bonds with them, it certainly can create lingering perceptual echoes, even when the cat isn't there. So there's a logical explanation. It's not necessarily supernatural sometimes. Of course, it would be fun to think that way. Are you familiar with Schrodinger's cat?
You'll have to remind me. I don't feel like I am.
Well, no worries. I'll get into it. But basically, someone wrote, "Cats are masters of string theory." And then there's the whole Schrodinger's cat thing. So, Schrodinger's cat is a famous thought experiment by Edwin Schrödinger, which illustrated the strange implications of quantum mechanics. So imagine a cat sealed in a box with a device that has a 50-50 chance of killing the cat, based on a random quantum event like a radioactive decay. According to quantum theory, until the box is opened and observed, the system exists in a superposition, meaning the cat is considered both alive and dead at the same time. Once someone opens the box and observes what's actually happening there, the superposition collapses into one definitive outcome. In other words, the cat is both alive and dead until you open the box and discover which is true.
Mm-hmm.
So people use that theory a lot, Schrodinger's cat. Like, I think I use it a lot. I don't know if I'm always using it the right way, but it's basically the observer effect. It's the concept, like there's this concept in science where, and this has been proven, this is not like a theory, it's a quantum reality, but science has proven that when you're looking at one thing, it's almost like a proof of a video game or something. What you're seeing is waveforms. Out of the corner of your eye, it's particles. But if you were to turn your gaze left to that area, that becomes waveforms, and this area becomes particles. It's almost like it's only rendered where your focus is. It's the scientific reality that, like, Einstein was uncomfortable with it. He really wanted the universe to have hard and fast rules. And there was one convention he was at where Niels Bohr, who was one of the pioneers of quantum theory, would meet with him every day for a week at this conference. And Einstein would ask him 3 or 4 questions. And he'd go, "Okay, let me come back to you." And he'd come back and go, "Here are the answers." And Einstein's like, okay, now what about this? And by the end, he answered all their questions. They answered all his questions. And Einstein's like, I accept the majority of this, but I just don't want to live in a reality where I just can't understand that there's a hard and fast rule. Meaning, like, there's a reality that is a reality because we observe it. And if you shift somewhere else, there could be a different reality. So it puts us in a position as humans, or as I think of spirits having a human experience, where our realities are reflective of our observations. In a way, nothing has any power if we don't observe it. Like, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make any sound? That kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
If no one's there to see it, obviously. Obviously, it would make a sound if you're there. But yeah, I just find those things fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. And also, I think it goes back to every story we told today that, like, you can plan an outcome in your head, or you can have the conversation and let the outcome be what it is. Like, you're deciding these options in your brain, but until it just happens, until you communicate or you have the experience or you do the thing, you don't actually know if the cat's alive or dead. Take the top of the box off and figure it out. And then deal with that outcome. But take the top off of the box. Otherwise, you're living in a 50-50 reality, and do you really want that? Maybe sometimes it is. You're happy to keep the lid on the box and not know. But I think for most of our experiences in life, we like whatever the truth is to the outcome. Might not be what we want, but it's going to be whatever it is. The unknown is much more uncomfortable, I think, for most people than the known, and figuring it out and getting to the end solution, even if it's hard.
Very well said. Yeah, I mean, I do believe that we fear the unknown, as we discussed earlier, and that in most cases, I would hope in most cases, our worst fears are not anywhere near as bad as what the reality actually is. A few days ago, I was in a hospital visiting my grandmother just 1 hour before she passed away. I went out of the room for a moment, and I clearly saw at the end of the corridor my father, her son, and my mother talking with a nurse. My father was wearing his military green jacket and blue jeans, my mother a black jacket with puffy hair, as if she left the house urgently without any primping. I tried to make a gesture to get their attention, but they completely ignored me. I went back to the room to tell my grandma they were there, but she wasn't conscious. So I went to the end of the corridor to talk to my parents. As I arrived, my parents weren't there, just my uncle, the brother of my father. I asked about my parents and he said they were home. I was surprised because there's no way I could mistake them for other people. I know what they look like. By the way, my uncle is taller, thinner, and much younger than my father. Was there a plausible explanation for this?
I think a lot of times we see people that we need when we need them. I swear, I mean, I live on the other coast from my parents, but every so often when I really need my parents, I'll feel like I see a bald white man that is definitely my father, and it's not. But you get these flashes. I think it's just a representation of something that your brain might need. So that's like the logical way of manifesting it. Those were probably strangers in the hospital that you really needed your parents then, probably, or had some longing feeling for them, and it was your brain's way of communicating that to you.
Yeah, I do think that is the case. I think when we're in an emotional state, knowing that, like in this case, the grandma is about to pass on, you're looking for a support system that's familiar to you, or she is, we are, whatever the scenario. And so we'll look at a face and we'll think that that's somebody. I just told a story the other day that I thought was interesting. This is a weird one that you can kind of draw your own conclusion, but I was hiking once a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I dropped my wife off at a Panera while I did this early morning hike all the way around this mountain and came back down. The man who started this meditation group that I go to almost every Monday, he had been doing it for 10 years plus, and he passed away. And he was sick. It's the kind of thing where your body slowly shuts down. And he handled this with such dignity and grace. There are a few people from the meditation group he invited over to the house to do meditations there as he was getting worse and worse. His wife was with him too. And he was just so wise and so composed in this situation. It just so much respect and love for this guy. And so he passed on. And now fast forward like a year or so, I'm hiking up in this mountain. And as I'm coming around the bend, these two guys are coming up the trail. And I'm listening to headphones. I'm listening to music. And I kind of get a sense that they're trying to draw my attention to something, maybe, but I just sort of don't respond. I'm in my own world. I think they're sort of almost being like, sir, and they just keep going. So then I see all the way at the bottom of the hill, a man that looks just like the man who ran my meditation group. He's like got those poles, how some people will take poles on a trail for stability. And he just kind of, from way down the trail, I look down, he looks up at me and he just points with the pole. And then I was just sort of like, maybe I gave a wave like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he walked on. And all of a sudden, that whole moment caused me to just take my headphone out for a quick second. And I heard the loudest rattler from a gigantic rattlesnake just right there off the trail in the bush. And I'm like, oh my God, that thing is huge. And what made it more dangerous is its little baby was on the other side of the trail.
Oh my God.
So it was like, somehow they got separated and it was very angry, sending out a warning, don't anyone come near me. Now, because I took that out, I was able to be very careful and intentional about how I walked through that path. And, I was so curious because obviously I knew the man passed on. I didn't think it was like him, but I was like, is this just my mind playing tricks on me? Maybe he didn't look anything like him. Let me go down the path to just see. And he wasn't there. I couldn't find him. And I'm not saying he wasn't there. He was on that trail. I saw him on the other side. But he must have just gone a different way and I just didn't catch up with him. But I'm like, I tell the story to other people from my meditation group, like, hey, did you know he once saved my life? Even though he wasn't here, in some way, either he did or my mind put that moment together. Because, I mean, rattlesnakes, they are venomous.
Yeah.
And if they do strike you, the clock starts ticking for your salvation.
Yeah. But no, I think, you pull from things when you need them. And also that people have a way of being there with us when they're not here anymore. And if we pay attention and we listen, either we decide it's them or it really is. I like to think it really is because I miss people, and it's nice to think that they come to me and do things for me or with me. What's the alternative? You don't think that, I guess, which is fine if people don't want to, but I choose to. My grandmother and I were very, very close. And so whenever I do stuff, I'll tell her out loud. And every so often I have moments that pass over that I can feel her or like smell her, things like that. Like like a perfume that you recognize or, and I think what's my option of what's the worst case that I feel that I see her? Nothing. Like there's no bad to that. And also that I really do believe some of the things she does for me, and I'm grateful for it. I'll say out loud, I'll thank her out loud, because that's a better feeling in my opinion. And also that who knows what happens and where we go and where we are when we're not here or whatever. I think it's more about paying attention. If you pay attention and are aware, you find those things all around you.
I agree. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that anyway. It's our own experience. I do feel like I believe we're all energy, which I believe Einstein also said, like an energy can't be destroyed. It's eternal. It goes on to some other form. None of us know exactly where it goes, but I believe it does go somewhere. A new experience, new reality, new dimension, whatever it is. Perhaps they're there and they just chime in every now and then. Maybe they're a higher dimension and we're down here like, hey, I felt that once with my grandma too, a definitive moment. But it was more of I felt more of an energy presence. But in this case, this was like I saw a physical presence. And, if I would have gotten really close, he might have looked nothing like the guy. But my mind told me it looked just like him. And in a way, if I didn't sort of take that as an obvious thing, I would have stepped into that rattlesnake.
Yeah. Or you got to have one more moment with somebody who was really important to you. You thought about him, you remembered him, you gave thanks to him. Somebody who was important in your life, and just because somebody's not here anymore doesn't mean that they don't have impact and they don't deserve a moment. You got another one with him, regardless of if that was him or not.
Beautiful. The hot topic of the day. Let's talk about the 3 kinds of love. So, a classic way to understand love, rooted in ancient Greek thought and still very relevant today, is that there are 3 primary kinds of love. Number 1 is eros, romantic and passionate love. Eros is desire, chemistry, and polarity. It's the magnetic pull between people, the spark, the passion, the feeling of being drawn towards someone. Eros lives in the nervous system, the senses, and the imagination. At its best, Eros brings vitality and creativity. At its worst, it becomes obsession or dependency. Number 2 is philia, friendship and soul-level love. Philia is the love of companionship and trust. This is the bond you feel with close friends and creative partners. It's rooted in mutual respect, honesty, and emotional safety. Philia grows slowly and deepens over time through shared experiences. In long-term romantic partnerships, philia is often what sustains connection after the initial intensity of eros settles. Without philia, passion has nothing solid to rest on. Number 3 is agape, universal and unconditional love. This is compassion, forgiveness, and care that isn't dependent on attraction or reciprocity. It's the love you feel for humanity, for life itself, for strangers, animals, or the world at large. Many spiritual traditions describe agape as the highest form of love because it isn't about getting, it's about being. Agape doesn't replace eros or philia. It contains them. When someone says love is a choice, they're usually pointing to agape. So obviously the most grounded, healthy relationships, romantic or otherwise, involve all three. When they're aligned, love is enduring. But the question here I have is, if you had to choose only two, eros, philia, or agape, to build a lifelong relationship on, which two would you choose and which one would you sacrifice and why?
Philia and agape. I think that's pretty easy for me.
Wow. That's like,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I think it's really easy for me. I really value consistency. I really value knowing. I love to know. I'm a big prepper. I love a list. I love, knowing what to expect from people. And so something that I think is built on like a mutual trust, on sort of deep-rooted love that comes from the mundane moments in life, the unfun times, maybe the hard stuff, I think is really valuable to me. I'm lucky, I think, to have experienced a lot of that love in my life, so I think that's why I gravitate to that. I have a big sister who is my best friend in the whole world, who loves me the most ever, and I was like, when I was little, I used to think like, oh God, I'm never gonna get married because I'll never meet someone who loves me as much as my sister. And I'm lucky to have found a partner who loves me as much as my sister, which is terrifying to think about. Having two people who love me that much in the world is so scary. And so I think that's why I gravitate to those. And eros, that sort of, not that it's not important, because spark and spontaneity and all of those big feelings are also important, and the passion of life and love, the passion for those things is really important. But I really love foundation and consistency, and I think those two, philia and agape, speak the most to me in that way.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel like that's one thing that my wife and I have, which is when you're with someone for a certain amount of time, I guess for her, she says she doesn't even think about anything serious before 6 months. She just wants to like get to know the person.
Yeah.
And once you get behind the curtain, what do they really like? Because we all have flaws, we all have challenges. And her thought was, at some point we'll get to a place where we'll admit some deeper truths and we'll see if there's something there deeper and long term. And we both got to that place. And once we sort of had those maybe more secrets about things that we might feel negative about ourselves or challenges we have, flaws, once you feel seen and you can share those, it takes it to another level. Because then you have something where it's like, I don't have to pretend. Like she always says, everybody's a great first date. Not everybody, but most people are great first dates because they're putting on their best, self. No one comes in and goes, by the way, just before we get going, I have $100,000 of gambling debt. My wife says I beat her. I didn't beat her that much. Only every now and then. Yeah. And by the way, I kicked a dog on the way in here, but you don't like dogs.
Right.
Like, nobody comes in and says those things. They sit down and they're programmed to think, how do I put on my best self?
The beautiful parts are easy to love, right? Those are the things that everybody loves. Oh, she's so funny. Everybody loves her. Oh, whatever. It's the rest of it, right? Because that's only a fraction of who you are, and not that people aren't beautiful for all reasons and whatever, but the ugly parts of yourself that are even maybe hard for us to love about ourselves, if you can find someone who loves those parts of you, you're set. I mean, that's somebody that foundational love, I really believe, carries you through the rest of your life, because, you have your young life where you do stuff and you have friends and you go out and it's fun, and then you have kids, if that's your path, and you do that. And then at some point it is just the two of you, like, together. And what do you do when the house is empty and quiet? And what do you do on Thursday nights when no one's around? And like, what does that look like? And what does that feel like? And I think those are the moments that life is made up of, a lot of those. So find somebody, that kind of love is important then.
Oh, yeah. So since we're recording this in February, I thought I'd ask a Valentine's question. Do you think that Valentine's Day reveals how we love or how we've been taught to perform love?
That's a really good question. Ooh. I think it's a little of both, right? Some of it is a little performative in the sense that like, right, you like get a pink card. But from my experience, I also think it reveals how you want to love people and how you want them to love you. It might be something silly like, you're looking forward to, I don't know, a box of sweethearts, right?
Yeah.
But it's really what you're looking forward to is someone giving you something and showing you that they love you, right? Like just acknowledging how much they love you. It doesn't have to be some big thing, but I think ultimately all we're looking for is the knowledge that they do, and they do care. And at the end of the day, it probably doesn't really matter how they do it if you go to some fancy dinner or you get a card, and if that part matters to you, you may need to do a little assessing too, that like the gesture wasn't big enough or it wasn't expensive enough, or, to be mindful during these times that can feel like you're expected to spend a lot of money and do a lot of things. Just make sure you find your root of level setting with yourself and reminding yourself too that like love is bigger than how big the bouquet of flowers is.
There's such a thing called love languages. For example, some people want physical touch, quality time, gifts, acts of service, or words of affirmation. And most people, there's at least one that overlaps in the couple. Usually like the top two should be similar, because I've seen people who the woman wants just gifts and the man is an acts of service guy. He wants, hey, I fixed your car, but you didn't buy me this. And then that's the challenge, when they're very out of sync. That is when it can be a problem, because your way of showing affection will go completely unappreciated and vice versa.
Right.
So before we wrap this up, I want to see if I can show you this real quick. Here's my question for you. How do you think this pattern was made? Was it A, the evening currents during a lunar cycle, B, sound waves emanating from a Navy ship, C, a pufferfish, or D, aliens?
Well, I want to say D, aliens, but I'm going to guess something about the tides. That would be my guess, the first one.
That would be a reasonable guess, but let me show you. All right, here's the answer, if you can see this. Do you still see that?
Aww.
That is made by a pufferfish. When pufferfish are trying to attract a mate, they create these incredibly beautiful symmetrical shapes in the sand. It's part of their mating ritual. The male will dig tunnels and create ridges to form a complex mandala-like pattern, which is designed to trap fine sand in the center, creating a safe spot for eggs while protecting them from ocean currents. The male decorates the nest with shell fragments and coral. Now, female pufferfish will inspect the structure and will only mate if the design is deemed adequate.
I love that. And I love hopefully this is a real image. I love how proud he looks swimming away. He's like, check that out. She's gonna love it. But I think it speaks to the bigger theme of doing things to show somebody that you love them matters. Whether you're a pufferfish or a human, it matters to us in our deepest selves. It's something we do everywhere, right? It's all throughout nature. I saw a peacock on my run the other day, and he was doing a dance for somebody, for a girl peacock. And I was thinking, look at that. He wants her attention. Wow. It's all around us. All that love is around us. It's fun to look at it in different ways.
Totally agree. And that's a great place to end this. So thank you so much for joining me today, Annabel. This has been super fun.
That's true. I loved it. I had so much fun.
And before we peace out, is there anything you'd like to add? Any final words of wisdom, observations, anything?
Just be kind. The world is full of so much. And so if you can put a little bit of sunshine into somebody's day, you should do it. Don't take yourself too seriously. This life should be full of love and fun and enjoyment. And if you're not finding that right now, shake it up, pivot, and go find it.
Very well said. Thank you so much again. I greatly appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Trill.
If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe and leave me a comment letting me know your thoughts on today's stories. Remember, every challenge is an opportunity. Until next time, namaste. So just hold for 1 minute. You did fantastic. That's so great. So great. I love it. Very, very insightful. Now do a little bit of the like classic, like, what is this story? Like,